Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Rams Brothers, the pod. I'm your host, Dene, and I'm joined by the other host of this show, Nick. And Nick, it's been a while. I felt like we were going to have some more time. It felt like we had an extra bye week with this game coming up. And all of a sudden, it's Thursday. We're ready for the preview. Nick, how are you?
I'm doing good. It was awesome that the Rams were able to give us a win on my birthday. And it was great that we were able to get an episode out Friday, which was really cool because it was just like right after it. And it kind of gave us some time to, relax, and got the Giants coming up. So it feels like we can kind of start to relax into this year. I mean, all the Rams,
you could have your coffee and you could settle into the season finally.
All the Rams wins this year have come from playoff teams. So now they can kind of start to reach a point where they're just playing regular teams, which must feel nice. And it feels good that they can, hold their own with playoff teams.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's obviously been a little bit of a roller coaster start, but 4-1, you're in a good situation heading into the next 4 weeks. And we'll talk about this Giants game coming up, but let's talk about our sponsor, Brewery X, the best brewery in Anaheim. IPAs, hard seltzers, you name it, they got it. Over 30 beers, 10 hard seltzers. Curbside pickup 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Open every day, 11 a.m. to midnight. That's where you got to go before the game, after the game. I know we're eventually trying to get some people together, maybe after the Lions game, because we're going to be there for that game. Maybe we head over to Brewery X, get some slap and tickles, get the girls to have some hard seltzers, and keep the party going, as we like to say in this family. But I don't know. Let's do it. Let's get into the intro. The Rams are headed into MetLife Stadium. Nick, it's when you are in this area, you've been to that stadium a couple of times. I don't know if you've seen the Rams and the Giants play, but I know you've seen the Giants play in MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, Giants are kind of my when I'm home, when I can go to games, I'm in like we live in like the South Jersey area back at home. So I try not to go to Eagles games just because I just don't really like their fans. Giants fans are way more relaxed and nice and fun. So I like to go to Giants games over Eagles games. It's a really nice stadium.
Yeah,
and I always root for him because Eli Manning is just my favorite athlete. So I've always been a huge fan of his.
Eli Manning, your favorite of all time? Eli Manning is your favorite athlete of all time? Really?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it says a lot about your personality. One, I'll give you that. But MetLife Stadium, it's a beautiful facility. I've only been there once for a concert, Nick. You and I went to Eminem and Rihanna. So I haven't been there for a game. You've been in the stadium for a game.
Eminem and Rihanna were here, and Dene and I were all the way up.
What were we, section 432 or something like that? We were way, way up.
Yeah, we could turn around and we could see New York.
Yeah, well, it wasn't if you're afraid of heights, it's not a comfortable seat whatsoever. But the Giants, they've had an unfortunate start, to say the least. Right? They lost week 1 to the Broncos. Then they lost to Washington by a point the following week. Then they lost to the Falcons at home in a game where they should have easily won it. They dropped a couple of late interceptions. And then they beat the Saints in overtime in New Orleans. And then they got destroyed with injury and blown out by Dallas in Dallas. So it's been a hell of a ride so far for the Giants, and it's been a season where it's been extremely underwhelming. Right, they were coming in, from a year 6-10 where they figured, Daniel Jones is going to continue to develop. We're getting Saquon healthy. We added some important key pieces to the defense, and now we're going to have an improved team. And they just haven't been in that situation. And it's actually really kind of a blessing, the fact that the Rams are even playing in this game, the fact that this game is even happening. If you look back a year, the Giants and the Cowboys, they both finished 6-10 last year, so they were both technically in second place. But the Giants beat the Cowboys in the last game of the season after losing to them early on. I think the Giants started last year 0-6 or something like that. But then the Giants owned the better record against the division. So they finished second in the NFC East, and so did we in the West, which means instead of having to go to Dallas this weekend, we get to go to MetLife, Nick, your second favorite stadium, and face a depleted Giants team. So having to face Dallas, I think, after playing Tampa and Arizona and Seattle in consecutive weeks would have been a little bit ridiculous after the schedule the Rams have had thus far. So again, the fact that this game is even happening, the fact that the Rams are going into MetLife facing a team that's almost completely depleted offensively. They have a couple of weapons left, but puts the Rams in a really positive situation moving forward.
I really liked this Giants team going into this year. I feel like they were really pesky at the end of last year. They really hung in games. I don't know if I've seen a heartbreaking loss as heartbreaking outside of a Lions game as that Washington game where special teams they missed the field goal and special teams on the Giants jumps off sides and gives them another chance. And of course, he makes the second one. They should have won that game. They should have won the Falcons game. I think they like it. It's a team that if I was a coach, I'd be like, this is not a week that we fall asleep. Like you got to bring your A game because they will. I mean, like they brought the Saints into overtime. They had no business being in that game, and then they win. But now with all the injuries, I don't know what's going on with Daniel Jones. The line keeps moving up and down, so I don't know what's going on there. But I hope for his sake he doesn't play. Right. He did not look good after that hit. And I think he's showing real signs of being a true maybe like a top 10, top 15 quarterback in this league. So I think maybe the problem is with Joe Judge, which doesn't really make sense because I thought he actually did a really good job last year. So, it's just the Giants. It's just over and over again. It's like they try to get these offensive linemen for these guys and they just fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
So some teams just kind of they get that curse after being good for a little bit.
Well, you know what? This team, when they're healthy, they're not a bad football team. Like they're definitely a team where you could be in a situation, favored by 7.5 points, which is what they were prior to all the injuries, where you could find yourself in a trap game situation.
Yes.
So again, like you said, what they did against the Saints, bringing them into overtime and then beating them at home. I don't think the Saints are as good of a football team as the Rams are, but again, they're pesky enough to definitely stay in games. You look back last year.
Saints will make the playoffs this year.
They may as a wild card team. But the Giants last year, they were not fun to go against. Like they held us to 17 points. Everett scored early on. I think it was like a design jet sweep that he scored. And then Goff found Cooper Kupp later on in that game. But they were tough from the jump, and they made us think, like you said, that they were on the right track coming into this year. Last year, they were 9th in points and 12th in yards allowed, which isn't anything to go nuts about. But again, I mean, that's plenty good to win you games on the defensive side of the ball, especially in that direct division, right? They had a really good opportunity this year to kind of take that next step and, force a couple of losses against Dallas potentially. The Eagles aren't that good of a team. They're, from within 1 point within Washington, right? So they're kind of right there. But they just haven't been able to take that next step. And then obviously injuries kind of put it over the top. But then you look back just in the beginning of the season, kind of what the Giants did to put a Band-Aid on the defense. I wouldn't say put a Band-Aid, but they really tried to build up the personnel and try to take that next step and become a top 5 defense. Lorenzo Carter and Shante Jimenez, they're both guys that are back from injury. They signed a Dory Jackson, which was much needed because they didn't have anybody that could play opposite of James Bradberry. And then safety Xavier McKinney, he's healthy. But it's a shame because on paper, like I mentioned, Nick, they were far better than they were last year, which theoretically means they could potentially be a top 5 defense heading into this year, which is why I believe a lot of their fans were optimistic with this team. I think even you and I were, and a lot of us, I think a lot of the decisions that we make are based off of a bias in games where we've seen them play against the Rams. Like all of our thought process with Sam Darnold is based off of his performance, what he did the Jets against the Rams last year. But really from week to week, you evaluate him and he's a roller coaster as well. So right. There's more context to the story.
To speak on your point, I have a lot of friends that are Giants fans. And to be honest, most of them were not feeling good going into this year. I mean, I think like they kind of just feel like they're doomed. I remember I was like, I think they can win the division this year. And most of my friends were like, what are you, nuts? Like,
well, that's kind of part of it. They've been doomed for the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, which is just honestly been a shame. I just think they're just a really cool organization. I mean, like, it's certainly New York's team. The Jets can be abysmal because the Jets suck, but you like to see the New York teams just do well. Just, in general, like basketball's better when the Knicks are good. Mm-hmm. Football's better when the Giants are good. That's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that point, but I mean, nobody's going to root for this team. the way that they performed through 5 games, 26 in points allowed and 29th in yards allowed so far. They gave up 22.3 points per game last season. They're up to 28 this year over 5 games. They're currently 30th in pass rush win rate. So it says a lot about their defensive line and their front 7, and they're 31st in total sacks with 7 total. So like I said, their front isn't doing anything. They're also allowing 4.7 yards per attempt on the ground, which is good for 28th best in the league. And then last year they were all the way down to 4.0. So, I mean, you're taking a big jump just in terms of overall yards allowed per game, yards allowed on average, points allowed per game. Like your defense is just plummeting in the wrong direction. They've also allowed the 5th highest passer rating at 108.5, 8th most yards allowed per play, 3rd worst third down conversion percentage. Opponents are converting nearly 50% of their third downs against the Giants. And all of these numbers were far better last year. So they've just taken a step in the worst direction. We've taken some time, Nick, you and I, to just evaluate some of the issues on this team. Giants fans may want to look away. I'm sure this is very similar to what you guys are seeing, just the overall evaluation of this team. But just starting with the defensive line, Nick, chime in here whenever you have a comment. You're getting next to no production from Dexter Lawrence or Leonard Williams. According to Seth Walder, I tweeted out, I think a couple of days ago, Leonard Williams currently ranks 50th in pass rush win rate as a defensive tackle out of 62 qualifiers. Last year, he was on pace for 5 total sacks after having 11.5 last year. And they signed him to a $63 million contract, $45 million guaranteed. And he just hasn't produced. That's one of the most frustrating things you could imagine as a fan. You give a guy a big deal, especially on the interior portion of the defensive line, somebody who's going to come up and stop the run and be a clogger and rush the passer and get pressures, and he's just not doing his job. Same with Dexter Lawrence. I mean, he's getting the pressure, but he hasn't even recorded a sack yet and only has recorded 1 single quarterback hit. So you're getting virtually next to nothing from the interior defensive line so far. 2 guys that you expected to do a lot so far, 5 games into the season. Transitioning over to their edge rushers, the league flat out doesn't respect this group whatsoever, and all the numbers will tell you so. They don't double team them whatsoever. And because they aren't game wreckers like the Bosas or the Watts or Khalil Mack or Myles Garrett, et cetera, you don't have to game plan for these guys. So rather than having to double up these guys or add an extra tight end, whatever you have to do to alleviate the pressure of a top-tier edge rusher, you could just let your tackles go to work. So you saw how many times, Nick, you watched that Cowboys game, that Cowboys-Giants game, I'm sure a little bit. You saw how many times Zeke was able to get to the edge, around the corner, up the field against that Giants team. He looked like Todd Gurley in the red zone. Just consistently feed Zeke. And
all I'm hearing this week is how Zeke is back to full form and the Cowboys need to just rely on him more. And I'm like, well, he played the Giants, you know what I mean? Like, let's kind of pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, these 2 players, Carter and Ojulari, they're both guys that, again, you expected a lot out of before the season started, but they're both proven to be liabilities this year. I mean, you can go right at either side. Zeke around the right edge this past week had so much success. The next level stats of just him running around the edge were staggering. And with their pass rush win rate just being 30th overall, it just goes to show that, it's falling on the edge rusher's shoulders to be able to increase that pass rush win rate, to increase their pressures and hits and quarterback sacks, but they're just not getting it. And it trickles over to the interior defensive line, and their whole line has been a weak spot for this team this year. And then you look at the linebackers. You lost Blake Martinez to a torn ACL in week 3. Tay Crowder was a 7th-round draft pick in 2020. He's taken Blake Martinez's place, but he's the Giants' lowest-graded lowest-graded defender in general over the past 2 weeks. So you can't catch a break with this team. I mean, all over the place. Even the guys that are healthy up front, guys that aren't dealing with injuries, aren't performing the way that they should. It's just I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of a Giants fan right now, a team that could be theoretically 3-2, right, going into this game with a couple of injuries. At least you're optimistic in terms of what happened prior to the injuries, but you just have nothing to hang your hat on with this team.
Yeah,
it's
that's just kind of been their MO for like a really long time, at least pre-Odell era or post-Odell era, I should say. It's kind of because, they had a little magic with Odell and Eli for a little bit, and that was always really fun to watch. And since then, Danny Dimes hasn't even been something that's been fun to watch until this year. So it's kind of the more you talk about it, the more I just start to feel like this Rams game should be definitely included in a parlay.
Well, yeah. Well, there's that. And I don't want to diminish the excitement of this game because they still had talent on both sides of the ball. So they'll still make it somewhat of a game. They did against the Cowboys in the first half of that game. But again, you got James Bradberry is extremely disappointing this year. He was talked about as one of the best in the league last year. I thought he was one of the best in the league coming off of last year. He looked like a true number one cornerback, but he's allowed 117.9 passer rating and 74.2% completion percentage against him thus far. He's surrendered 23 completions on 31 targets. They went out, I mentioned, signed a Dory Jackson to play on the opposite side of him. It was a move that I hated. I knew Titans fans were excited to get rid of him, and it hasn't worked out whatsoever. It's been the same old story for him, and it seemed like it was one of those desperation moves where you needed to just kind of fill a void in the offseason, or you just threw a lot of money at a guy who had somewhat of a proven track record. And then you look at the safety, Logan Ryan. He's been super underwhelming. Passer rating against him, 134.8. He's making $10.5 million per year. And then Jabril Peppers, he's really kind of the energy on that defense, but he's been banged up. He doesn't look quite like himself. And he's never been that great in coverage either. So he gets exposed at times where it just seems inconvenient for the Giants. And their second round pick last year, Xavier McKinney, he's also been mediocre at best. So, I mean, like I said, there's really not much to be excited about when you look at this defense, but you can't, like you said in the beginning of the podcast, you can't fall asleep because you still have players like James Bradberry are going to be sitting on routes. Dory Jackson does have talent. They do have talent in the secondary, so Matthew Stafford's not going to be able to just pick them apart all day. But again, I don't think it's one. We talked about this over the past couple of weeks, especially with Arizona and Tampa Bay. You have to be able to marry up the pass rush and coverage downfield. And I don't think if the Giants haven't been able to generate any pass rush, which is why their defensive backs have been getting exposed throughout the first 5 games of this season. So
the Giants just seem like a team that you got to start from the top. You got to take out the GM. You got to probably fire Joe Judge. He may be the first coach fired this year. I said it was Nagy, but Nagy sneakily passed his play calling privileges to the offensive coordinator like late at night one night. So he may be all right. But then again, it's like, what are you even doing if you're not the offensive coordinator, Nagy?
I think I would start with the defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
For the Giants. For whatever reason, the scheme that they're putting forward isn't working. They're not getting any pressure. There's nothing creative up front. There's no stunts. You really kind of have to be creative with the defensive line, especially if you have some kind of talent, or at least you're telling people that you think that you do, or you could rotate in players on the edge like the Rams have been able to this year. You're just not getting any of that from the Giants. So it's been a tough team to watch. Against the Cowboys, watch the game, watch a portion of the game, went back and watched the highlights. They actually do. I mentioned they do have some playmakers on defense, which is why you can't fall asleep at the wheel. But Lorenzo Carter made an incredibly athletic play on one of Dak Prescott's passes on 4th and 2 early on in this game. He tipped it up to himself and secured the interception during Dallas's first possession of the game. But they did next to nothing throughout the entire season outside of that play.
How about them Cowboys? Looking like a legit contender right now. I mean, maybe not contender, but they'll definitely win that division.
Well, they're going to win the division for sure. But they made some weird mistakes early on in that game. Without the injury, I wonder how close that game would have really been.
No, right, I think the Giants would have taken it, honestly.
Yeah, the Cowboys had a really bad fumble in the red zone in the first quarter of that game, which gave the Giants an extra possession. I think that was the possession where the Giants were able to march down the field, and then Danny Jones got hurt trying to tie the game. And the Giants went on to tie that game with Devonte Booker going over the top. I think they made that game 10-10, and that was pretty much it. Right, the Cowboys kind of started to march down the field. They had the big pass of 49 yards to CeeDee Lamb, and then they were able to kind of take control of the game. But they were in that first half of that game. obviously the Giants have had some issues allowing touchdowns within 2 minutes of the half throughout this entire season, just multiple touchdowns in every game within 2 minutes of the half or within the end of the game. So they've been a liability there. But at the same time, you have this Cowboys offense, which made a couple mistakes early on. You had an opportunity to take advantage, and they did for the most part. So obviously a team that's banged up, that's 1-4, doesn't put together a complete game. Bad teams find a way to lose, as we love to say.
Yeah, that just stings in my head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're in a really good situation if you're a Rams fan. So you shouldn't be upset in terms of, well, I guess if you're talking about the Cowboys, right, and their progression, they've done something where they look like they could be potential contenders in the NFC East, or in the NFC rather. Is their only loss against Tampa in Week 1 so far?
Yeah.
So they look like they're going to be
a game that they really looked like they were going to win up until the very last second.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, that's the thing about Dallas, right? Are they going to be the same team that they were over the last 10 years, make mistakes late in the season? Some of the better teams in the NFC this year, Dallas, Arizona, they haven't really been there. So I'm wondering if they're going to be sustainable throughout the rest of the season. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, that's true.
Important injury notes for the Rams. Darius Williams, the play that we were talking about on the last podcast where Taylor Rapp tried to jump over him. Looks like he was trying to avoid hurting anybody on that play. It's going to sideline him for 3 weeks. Taylor Rapp is fine, even though he landed on the ankle. But Darius Williams is going to be officially on IR for 3 weeks. Other than that, the Rams are pretty healthy.
3 weeks, though. Let's go through those 3 weeks. You have Giants, Lions, Texans. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I think what also gives players like David Long, Robert Rochelle an opportunity to kind of take a step up, get the important reps that they need.
Look how half full this glass is.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's always me. You're the pessimist, I'm the optimist.
That is so not true. So not true.
How full is your coffee cup? I would say half empty.
Well, it's almost done now. A little in there.
How about this? Aaron Donald banged up his knee in last week's game and had some swelling. So he's day-to-day, and he did not practice on Wednesday. Any concern there from you?
No.
Okay. Well, I don't think the Rams.
Aaron Donald is not human.
Either. Yeah. I don't think there's a ton of concerns there either. Whenever you bang up a knee, that's a bruise. You have some swelling. You have to ice it. It's going to hurt for a couple of days, but he's somebody you can get a cortisone shot if necessary, but I don't even think that would be necessary for a bruise or anything like that. So he should be fine. Matt Gay had ankle soreness. So he's So he's resting. He did not practice on Wednesday, but he was doing some work off to the side. What kind of work that could have been, couldn't imagine.
He was doing his taxes.
But damn, I mean, I saw Rodrigo Blankenship. He went down for the Colts, or he's got some hip injury or an ankle injury or something like that. Colts did not hesitate to bring in some new kickers, or at least try some kickers out. We have no depth at the position whatsoever. If Matt Gay's out with an ankle injury, I think Johnny Hecker's kicking field goals.
No, I think we're going for 2 if that's the case.
Yeah, well, you're right about that. But again, ankle soreness, I don't know how that happens, what happened, how he hurt.
Well, he missed a field goal last week, right?
Yeah, I know. He missed 2 extra points.
Right.
Yeah, or missed an extra point and then
a field goal.
And a field goal. And then he kicked 2 balls out of bounds.
Right. So he clearly, maybe he's just saying he's got some ankle soreness, so he looks better because, that was a atrocious performance.
It's tough. I mean, he's a guy who's been really good since he's gotten here. And then he comes into that game and, if Russell Wilson stays healthy and they're able to fight back in that game, a missed field goal, missed extra point is going to be the difference. So I'm just not willing to play in that space. I don't want to be in a situation where it's going to come down to a game-winning field goal because Matt Gay missed an extra point or he gave them the ball on the 40-yard line. So I'm always going to be evaluating the special teams. I think we both will. How did the game start? Tutu Atwell fumbled a kick return right out of bounds.
Yeah. And also, credit where credit is due. They did a good job to block that punt.
Yeah, they did.
And that would have sealed the game if it wasn't for some refs just not knowing what the hell the rules are. So
the double punt. Yeah, it was some BS. No, you're right about that. Jake Funk is dealing with a hamstring issue. He should be fine. And then Whitworth and Terrell Lewis did not practice Wednesday due to rest. McVay mentioned all of these players outside of Darius Williams will be playing on Sunday. So again, you just have to make sure that everybody stays healthy. If you have them on a plan this week, that's fine. If you have them for limited reps in Sunday's game, that's also fine. One of the keys to victory I have as a preview, you have to be able to stay healthy throughout these next 3 to 4 weeks. If that means getting up early in games and resting some of your starters, or giving guys like Jake Funk or, just other defensive linemen in place of Aaron Donald, Bobby Brown, where I can get some reps. Some of the other guys who are younger, who need some of those additional reps, can get them. That's going to be something that's important coming up. But everybody's going to play in this game, so no real concern with injury on the Rams' front. Moving over to the Giants, it's like you have a freaking book of injuries. It's kind of upsetting. Daniel Jones, I mentioned on the play where he tried to score. It was a design keeper where he was trying to get around the corner, and then when he knew he couldn't, he tried to cut it upfield and into the end zone. Ballsy. I give him tons of credit for trying to make that play. But he just ran into a brick wall. And I think some of the Cowboys defenders were like commenting on Instagram, like, way to give a concussion or some stupid shit like that. So again, Cowboys still scumbags. Daniel Jones, still a dog, in the words of you. But again, that's what took him off the field. So
I think Daniel and Trey Lance have to in that play, and I think this is how every quarterback should do it. It should be a dive. I mean, in the Daniel Jones one, he didn't really have enough room to dive, but Trey Lance in that game last week had a chance on 4th and goal to just dive over those Cardinal defenders. I mean, he was so close, and he just ducks down. That's something that you just got to teach. Daniel Jones, though, like, credit where credit is due. The kid's just really he's a baller. I'm just upset that we don't get to watch more of him this year. He could potentially be playing this week, which just makes no sense. I really don't want that to happen. But
yeah, well, he's gonna play. I think he's gonna play.
I don't know if you saw this, but Joe Judge is on the podium and he's saying Daniel Jones couldn't practice. And then one of the reporters like, he's out there right now in pads. And Joe Judge is like, almost like trying not to laugh. And it's like, bro, this is your job. You got to make sure this kid's life is safe.
Yeah, it's not a joke. I don't think concussion protocol is a joke whatsoever. You got to make sure that the kid's okay. I mean, when you're a 1-4 team and you're playing against the Rams at home, I mean, is it a situation where you could just rest the kid for a week? I mean, if he wants to go out and play and he's cleared by doctors, by all means. But I mean, it's going to be partially his decision if he's cleared. If the coach wants to play him, he can. But again, practicing is a sign of that you're going to play on Sunday. So he's trying to get out there in any capacity. We saw Saquon did not practice this week. He's not going to play this weekend. He'll miss the game due to the ankle injury he sustained in last week's game when he got his ankle stepped on. Devonte Booker, it looked like such a gruesome injury too. His ankle looked like it was the size of his quad. Devonte Booker is going to be in his place. And I don't know. You got to at least give him a week to get healthy. But again, it's a situation that just falls in the Rams' favor. They're missing Saquon, obviously an integral part of their offense, similar to what the Panthers do with Christian McCaffrey. Like it's just a shame not to have him in your offense when you're going up against a team like the Rams. Kenny Galladay, same kind of situation, did not practice, hyperextended his knee in last week's game. Giants staff was saying that they're lucky it wasn't worse. He's expected to be out at least this week, according to Ian Rappaport. He's had a very similar stat line. I just went back and looked at his stats to Robert Woods in the first 4 weeks of the season. And then he broke out against the Saints before getting hurt. But it's a shame. He may miss a few weeks, or like Saquon, he may miss a week and then try to come back the following week. But just another gift for the Rams.
I think this Giants team still feels like they can make a push here, which is just so hard in the NFC. Maybe in the AFC they'd be able to do it, but their schedule does kind of open up after this, so there's a chance.
Well, they go Rams, Panthers.
Panthers, I think, are a beatable team.
Well, yeah, they are. But you can't be missing your key offensive weapons. It's going to be tough. And this is the biggest one. I mean, really, if you have any value or love towards the offensive line, this is This is it. Andrew Thomas, he did not practice, but he's the real deal at left tackle. Many thought he was going to be a bust early on last year, but if he's not playing this week due to an ankle injury, then Daniel Jones probably shouldn't play either. His backup, Nate Soldier, he isn't good at all. Andrew Thomas was getting treatment on his foot last week and toughed it out to play against the Cowboys, and then he ended up aggravating his ankle in that game. So it's really just kind of worst case scenario. A guy who's really been developing and playing well, protecting Danny Jones's blind side, potentially is going to be out in this game. Sounds like, if I know him, and I don't at all, not even a little bit, but if he fought through the foot injury last week to play against the Cowboys, I know that was a divisional game, and he has an aggravated ankle, maybe the foot, it alleviated some of the pain in the foot. He may try to play in this game to protect Daniel Jones if Daniel Jones decides he wants to play. So maybe it'll be kind of a give and take there, where if Danny Jones is cleared, maybe Andrew Thomas is able to tough it out, get a cortisone shot, get himself on the field, because his backup doesn't do shit. So, and then this is another thing that's going to be a big deciding factor in this game. Matt Shukra did not practice. Excuse me, Matt. Left guard. He's
listening right now, and he's
thank you. Matt is listening to Rams.
He's like, thank you for excusing yourself, Dean.
Yeah, there you go. People are speculating he either has a left leg or a knee injury. He was in and out of the game against the Cowboys. He worked off to the side with Andrew Thomas in yesterday's practice. But again, both did not practice, and his backup, Wes Martin, played a little bit for Washington last year and is somewhat serviceable. May not be a huge drop-off, but again, if you have both of your starting left offensive linemen out in this game, you're not going to be in a good situation. So those three, I think, are the keys, right? You're not going to get Galladay. You're not going to get Saquon, but if you can keep your starting offensive line and then your starting quarterback's able to play in this game, they may be okay offensively.
The line's all over the place because they don't really know what's going on, honestly. They don't know who's playing and who's not playing. So the Rams line, it was 6.5, and then it was 10. I think right now it's sitting at like 7.5. Oh no, it's back to 10.5.
Yeah. Oh, it is. I thought it was 9.5 yesterday.
No, it's back to 10.5.
How about that?
But it's minus 105. So that's something I don't want to touch. I could put the Rams in a parlay, but 10.5 seems crazy.
Preview towards your picks?
No parlays this week. I like the lines like the regular bets too much.
All right, fair enough. Let's go. I just want to go through real quick. Rodarius Williams, cornerback, also did not practice due to a knee injury. Players that were limited: Kadarius Toney is the best player on their offense when Saquon and Kenny Galladay are out. He had a breakout game against Dallas. 10 passes for 189 yards. He hurt his ankle in this game and then returned afterward. He probably said he made it worse, or I'm sorry, he probably made it worse in that game by going back into the game. But he told reporters that he's good. He made catches in this game that I've only seen a handful of receivers make. He also threw a punch in this game. So I never understood punching people with helmets on.
Punching with a helmet on.
But
all you're doing is hurting your hand. I would think.
And it doesn't make
I know it's like it's an instinctive, thing to do, but I could never get behind it.
No, I get it. Totally get it. At least take your helmet off and try to hit somebody over the head with it.
No,
I'm just kidding.
That's
totally kidding. Sterling Shepard limited with a hamstring. Darius Slayton, Jabril Peppers also limited with hamstring injuries. They all practiced. They'll all be good to go on Sunday. Logan Ryan, Ben Mederitson, and then Nate Eber with a quad injury. They were all limited as well. All limited players should be able to play in this game. But again, it's really going to be about the status of Daniel Jones and Andrew Thomas right now. I think some of the keys to victory before we get into Nick's picks of the week. Stopping Kadarius Toney. We have Jalen Ramsey. We should be fine. He's the best offensive player that the Giants will have on Sunday. But again, I think he's the only legitimate weapon that the Giants are going to have on Sunday. So he's going to be the focal point of the offense. Make sure to lock him down. Keep Daniel Jones in the pocket if he does play. Our defensive lineman will get tested again. It's going to be really important for them to just be able to recognize the play early on and adjust to how they're going to rush the passer, right? So it's kind of like another practice. You're practicing things that you saw against Kyler, against Russ, keeping a quarterback in the pocket, being able to contain him, getting pressure early on, knocking him down. We'll keep him off of his game, and then we'll eventually force a player like Daniel Jones to make a bad throw or two down the field. So if you can get ahead early, you can put touchdowns on the board early on. Like we mentioned, Nick, in previous podcasts, these scripted series need to be much better. Which may be difficult for a team coming from the West Coast at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Technically would be 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. On their end. So being able to start fast, I think, is really important. Something that they should be able to prove to fans, I think, on the Rams' end, that they could actually score on scripted series.
Yeah, because that's definitely been their I just don't understand why their Stafford is so off on the first series every single time. He overthrows somebody every single time. It's like he wants to be a lion. It's like he wants to play from behind and like have to show up. It's like, why don't we just win easily, bro?
He's just loosening his arm.
Whatever.
He's fine. He's fine.
Whatever.
Stafford will be fine. He's going to win the next 4 games and we'll be good. Winning the battle up front, I also think is important. Building momentum with Henderson and Sony Michel in the backfield. Really kind of becoming a dual threat tandem. I think we saw a little bit of that against Seattle. We're going to see more of that against the Giants team, who's been allowing 4.7 yards per carry. Limiting injuries, I think, over the next 4 games. If you could limit injuries, get guys out early if you're up late in games, is extremely important. And then, Nick, you talked about Stafford for a second. These are get-right games for Stafford. Get him back on track. It's a chance for the offense to open up the playbook a tad. You could incorporate some additional play action, whatever you have to do to just make sure that your offense is ready and geared to go for the back half of the season. These are the 4 weeks where you're able to do so. So I'm expecting to see a little bit of creativity, stuff you can kind of play around with, stuff you can tweak with. And that's what I think we're going to see on Sunday. So I don't know. Agree, Nick? Disagree? What else you want to add? Take away?
No, I hope it's an armchair game.
Okay.
For some reason, everything is telling me that it isn't going to be, and it's like the Rams are going to think that the Giants are kind of just a pushover team, and that's just not who they are. Even with all the injuries, also like because football is such a sport where it's like not about one singular person. These next guys come up, they feel really strong that they can get the job done just as much. And they have that chip on their shoulder that everybody's counting them out. And that's real. People can use that. Michael Jordan played better when he had a chip on his shoulder. He'd be making up chips to put on his shoulder. Anything that can get it in his head that he needs to just slam on these people. So I started off the podcast feeling great about this team, and now I kind of feel a little I'm like a little woozy.
I feel like it's been in the opposite direction. I've been able to convince you.
I feel like you've convinced me the other way.
Well, I think you just have kind of a bad taste in your mouth from last year too.
And right? Last week, I thought that last week victory was honestly bull crap. Like they should have done so much better against that team, and they kept them in it the whole time.
Yeah, but I mean, you look back to last year. Were we mad when they beat the Giants 17-9? And we're 4-1?
No, because that felt like the Giants were putting themselves in that position as opposed to the Rams not capitalizing.
Well, if the Rams play down to the Giants level on Sunday, I'm sure we'll be upset. You might get a little bit of that in the first half, like I mentioned, like what Dallas did, right? Teams that are, they just don't have it all together quite yet, or they're trying to get it all together.
Take Giants +7 first half. That would be
if you can I think that's actually a good bet. If you can get the Giants to stay close in the first half, that would be good. But again, Nick, that we could see a game where the Rams start really quick and blow this game open 17.
Haven't seen it yet,
but I think it's time to see it, and I think you're going to see it at least twice over the next 4 weeks.
Well, you know what I say about that? We'll see. Now let's hop into Nick's picks. Nick's picks are back, baby.
Nick's picks are back, baby. All right. Well, then I got my hat for Nick's picks. I'm slipping it on backwards.
I'm going backwards hat for the picks.
I think you're doing the same thing. I think I also have a little bit of a present for Nick's picks. All right, go ahead.
The Funky Kong music has returned.
I look like an idiot with this hat backwards.
I think you look great.
No?
We had another great week for Nick's picks, who went 3-1-1, our first push of the season on that Pats-Packers tease. I didn't know teasers could push, so I thought that if it pushed, it lost. Turns out we got our money back, and that Fed week, every other week, we've been up at least 2 units. So, Dean, please, before they start really making some money, why don't you drop a lock?
Drop a lock. See, I'm supposed to be prepared.
You're never prepared for the picks, but it's okay. It's okay. It's part of
I'm prepared. I'm prepared this time.
All right, well, what do you got?
I'm going to pick against you. I love Green Bay in this game. I think they pushed. What was the finals? Did they end up pushing that game against Cincinnati? I thought they were going to cover against Cincinnati.
They pushed -3, but I took Green Bay +3 in the tease.
Did I take Green Bay to win outright, or did I take them to cover and win?
I thought you had the Bengals last week.
No, I think I had the Packers. Well, regardless, I'm going Packers this week to win and cover.
Win and cover.
Win and cover. I know you like the Bears +5. You think that they're coming off of something sweet. Packers have years and years of experience at beating the Bears.
Right.
I'll take Green Bay to win and cover in Chicago.
All right. So enough of this kid stuff. Let's jump in right in with another London game. Miami at Jacksonville, but really it's Miami and Jacksonville at London. We are 2 for 2 on London game bets this year. Nothing like waking up and seeing the team you bet on is already up 17 points. Thank you, Falcons. And thank you for kicking that field goal to hit the over. Genius move. I know you did that just for me. Now, I've seen this line move in favor of Jacksonville nonstop. It was -5, then it was Miami -5, then -4, and now it's -3.5. And I just truly don't understand it. On even playing field, you think Jacksonville is only 3 points worse?
Well,
even though the London fan base of football seems to have overall majority picked the Jags as their pseudo team because they've played there the most. I haven't seen anything in that team that would indicate any hope. I'm sure they'll win 1 or 2 games this year, but surely it won't be this one. Miami's a well-coached team that has been a little exposed early on this year. Their schedule's starting to clear up, and I think this is the time where they start to really push for that playoff spot, which is wide open. They hung around with Tampa all game last week outside of the fourth quarter. And unlike last week, 275 passing yards and 2 touchdown passes for Brissett will surely be good enough to take down Urban Meyer's dirty fingers. However, we are going to buy half a point because we flipping hate half points, and we're going to take Miami at -3. I think it's going to be 23-19. Miami wins an absolute weird game that you're not even going to really remember is on television. So just take it, and then we'll just worry about it after the 10 o'clock games start.
Tua's first game back.
Tua is back.
Tua's back. Yeah, Tua's going to be back.
Oh, my God. I think you know what? You don't have to buy that half point, you know?
No, just take him at 2.5?
-3.5. Yeah, go for it.
3.5. Okay.
Yeah.
I like the Jags. I like the Jags to win the game.
Gross. Then we have Texans at Colts. Once again, the Texans are getting 10 points, and I think that's just the biggest mistake there is. First of all, it's a divisional game, so anything can happen. And second of all, they're going up against Carson Wentz. I don't know how anybody could trust the Colts at all, especially after giving away a 19-point lead to the Ravens on Monday night. This Texans team has had the Pats on the ropes. They had the Browns on the ropes. And I'm shocked to see Vegas is still putting the spread as high as 10. I think the Texans have a real shot at winning this game, quite honestly. But we're going to bet smarter, not harder, and just roll with Texans +10. To be fair, both teams still have a chance to take the divisional title. So it's not out of the question that we're going to see a strong game here, which is why I'm also taking the over at 43. 43 is the lowest over-under this week. I'm going to say 21-27. Let's say the Colts take the W, so we feel better about not taking Houston money line, even though that would be my upset of the week pick, honestly.
I actually like both of those a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know what time that game is. If it's during the Rams game, I'm not going to.
No, it's not. It's before it's 10.
Oh, okay. Well, then potentially sprinkle some money to get me going.
Yeah, no, I like that one a lot too. Both of those picks I really enjoy. And then we have Green Bay at Chicago, which is one you don't like. But how about them Bears, man? How about them? Justin Fields looked like he may be the greatest quarterback in Bears history. The Bears have a horrible quarterback history. The fans love him. Nagy isn't calling plays anymore, so Fields can actually shine out there. And this Green Bay team, just trying everything they can to lose against the Bengals. So bizarre. They don't feel strong. They don't feel like a complete team. I like the number we're getting here, Chicago +5. It feels like a safe call because, man, do I think the Bears can take it. They play some smash mouth football. They force you to throw it on them, which Rodgers is pretty good at, to be fair. And they play a physical game that some teams just try to stay away from. So let's not overthink it. The Bears are home. They always play well home, but they'll probably lose in some heartbreaking fashion, which is why I think +5 is a really good number. So I think it'll be 21-24, and I'll run with the Bears +5.
Okay. You know how I feel about that one.
Yeah, which is fair. I think I think betting Matt LaFleur is 10-1 overall against NFC North teams. So so I totally understand why you would take that pick. But I'm a bit of a rebel, and I've been doing really well this season, so I'm sticking with my gut.
Stick with it.
And then quick pick. I'm gonna go with the Chargers over the Ravens, man. They're dogs. Chargers are red hot, and the Ravens are winning close and only close. I said in the beginning of the year, I'd rather have Herbert, Kyler, Deshaun, and Lamar over Stafford, and everybody leaped out of their socks. I wonder how they would still feel about that.
Yeah. Are you stopping for a comment from me?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the future of the league. I mean, Herbert, Kyler, you could exclude Watson, Lamar, Mahomes, Josh Allen, right? I mean, you'd probably rather have all those guys over Stafford right now. If you're talking about the next 10 years and, winning with those guys in a rookie contract, all things that come into play there. So I like all 5 of those guys. I mean, they're all great players. I'm not going to get into who I would take over Stafford right now in debate, but yeah, I mean, your point's valid.
Yeah. I just think I've had really good points all year. So we're going to run it back. Miami -3, Houston +10, over 43 in Houston versus Colts, Chicago +5, and Chargers over the Ravens. I love this week. I think this is a mortgage week. You throw some mortgages on these picks and you just have a ball.
No mortgage. Yeah, $20, $50. That's fine.
$300.
No, $300. What, on all these collectively?
No. 300 each. No, I'm not going to do that. Maybe I am.
It stresses me out. One fantasy football league, just trying to get points from individual players for a one-time $100 buy-in stresses me out.
I'm so out on fantasy this year. In both leagues, I'm putting up a lot of good points, but it's just having really bad.
We'll definitely be out this week because you play me and I'm still in it.
Should we make a little bet, me versus you? You want to make a little fantasy bet?
Yeah, sure.
50 bucks?
Sure. I hate my team so much, man.
You heard it here. My team is also horrible, so it's going to go either way. But
everybody's questionable.
Yeah.
Everybody's
questionable. Oh, God. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kenny Galladay. What's his name's been on the IR all season. Landry.
We're both 1-4. So we're both very similar to the New York Giants. So yeah. What are you gonna do? We got a fun game coming up. We got a fun couple of weeks coming up. We're gonna be in Los Angeles next weekend.
I live in Los Angeles.
Well, I'm gonna be there for the Rams and Lions game. Should be some very interesting reaction, right? Is it going to be an ovation? I saw somebody tweeting that they're going to wear a Goff Lions jersey. I don't know what the hell you're going to wear.
You got to bring the Goff jersey to LA because that's going to be
fun. It's good. It's going to be a lot of fun. But again, if you guys are planning on going to that game, hopefully we'll meet up with you guys, have some fun, have some beers. It's going to be a good time. So that's coming up. Other than that, we got the game on Sunday. We'll have a recap Monday, and then we'll head into the weekend with some fun. So, Nick, anything before we sign off?
Thanks for listening, everybody. I just realized that Diddy Kong had just made a surprise appearance in this episode right behind me.
Diddy Kong, is that Chance the Rapper?
Yeah, Chance the Rapper. Right.
Yeah, there. I'm not. No, he's okay. All right. Peace out.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.